Jennifer, I want to ask you a question. I know I'm going to be losing you and Nechama at the top of the hour. Alex and Alvin and myself will stay on and try to get through some more questions. But I wanted to have both of you address this before you have to jump off. For more companies to start gaining the benefits of machine learning, what needs to change? I had written down here, do we need more regulatory guidance? And one of our registrants chimed in with that question as well. Is it just an investment issue, or is it more to it than that? And Jennifer, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
Sure. Yeah, I think the most important thing is really being thoughtful about the application of these new these new technologies. You know, the fastest way to kill a good thing is to overreach. So I think really being focused on the operational or the clinical or the development or the business or the development problem that we're trying to solve for. And then, as Alvin said really nicely, finding that right sort of strategic partner to sort of pull you forward, recognizing that, you know, there's a level of expertise that's required in-house, but this is slightly outside of the core business of, you know, most medical product developers, and finding those strategic partners is critical. You asked a really good question, and you said some came in from the audience as well around sort of regulation here. I actually think specifically our FDA colleagues have been really sort of forward-leaning with this. All of the roadmap that's associated with the sort of real world data and real world evidence, that whole roadmap, I think, is very forward leaning, and I think very exciting, and actually is intended to foster innovation rather than stifle it. I know this week that the Patient Expert Advisory Committee at CDRH, for example, is actually hosting a listening session all about the use of AI in medical product development, specifically on the device side. There's also the Technology Modernization Action Plan that came out of the Deputy Commissioner's Office just a few months ago. That's in draft form. All of that is really sort of leaning into the benefits of artificial intelligence in drug development. I would venture one last thing, which is, to me, especially as we digitize all of this data and as we have these increased computing capabilities, the use of a variety of different sensor technologies that can stream new sort of flows of data, is, I think, I apply less of a silo to drug and medical product development as opposed to sort of clinical care. I think the more we can think about sort of integrating these previously two very separate worlds, so that we can be accessing data, so that we can be sort of evaluating it, so that we can be applying these technologies to answer questions, not only in medical product development, but to go and meet the patients where they are and to better feed more generalizable information back into that ecosystem, really creating that sort of learning system. To me, I think sort of separating these or this idea of distinct silos is also going to be really important for sort of successful deployment of artificial intelligence.
Nechama, I was hoping that you could chime in on that one as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what we have to do, and this is happening in kind of the COVID world, is ask how do we do things, not why we can't, right? And probably this time last year it would be, well, regulatory agencies say we can't, and so now the question should be, okay, we have a new challenge, how do we meet that challenge? And that's going to apply to AI. It's really, really important that the business users understand the language, that they don't necessarily know what goes into a deep model versus a not deep model, but which kinds of problems can be solved with AI and which ones can't. And one of the easiest ways of doing that is, as Jennifer said, start small, do focus pilots, come up with a couple of things where you really listen very, very carefully to the business so that you can have that real impact. Because as Alex says, there's lots of AI models out there, but there isn't a lot of information on how to run them. So we're trying to kind of balance that, learning the language, asking the right questions, teaching people to ask the right questions, and then really asking, how do we solve this problem with AI, or should we solve this problem with AI?